Hey there, Aiden Shea with Guild of Imagination here, and today I'm going to be walking you through a beginner tutorial on how to play Gorilla Tag, and how to win. We're going to basically start from the very beginning, from when you first drop into the forest, the basic movement that you should work on, and then we're going to work our way all the way up to the skills that you probably would need in order to beat the competitive course. Which the competitive course is kind of the ultimate test of, okay, I've mastered some stuff. Now the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to focus on learning just simply how to walk. You don't need to worry about running yet. You're going to see a lot of people running around, but just focus on walking and getting used to dragging yourself across the ground. The way you start is you take your hand and you place it flat on the ground. And you just move it underneath you like this, and then you take your other hand and move it underneath you. This part should be pretty self-explanatory. You should understand it pretty quickly, but getting the movement down smoothly so that you're not like throwing yourself back or throwing yourself to the side, that's the stuff you want to work on. So try to make it so that you can walk in a nice straight line without losing too much speed. Alright, and once you have the basics of walking in a straight line down, you're going to want to start to add some serious power behind your hits into the ground, like this. You'll take your hand and you'll push into the ground a lot. You'll take your hand here, push into the ground super hard. You don't want to push straight down. If you push straight down, you're just going to go straight up, and you don't want to go completely sideways, otherwise you're either going to miss the ground and you're just going to do a tiny little hop like that, or you're going to end up hitting yourself on the ground and you're not going to get nearly as far as you could. What you want is a nice mix of going forward and going up. So you're going to want to hit down towards your hip and move under the ground and push yourself up in the air so that you make big strides forward. And the big thing to focus on while you're doing this is try to time it so that every time you're about to hit the ground, you make another swing, and then that will start you on being able to move around nice and smoothly. And eventually, as you practice this, you'll get faster and faster, and you'll be able to predict the timing properly to be able to move around super fast like this. Now it takes a while, so don't get discouraged when it's not something you can immediately do. If you can immediately do it, that's awesome. But it might take you a little bit because it is a pretty difficult skill to learn. It took me like a month to get it when I first started playing. Alright, and once you have that down... That's your camera shut off. Hello, camera. The card's full? Okay. Alright, and once you have some of that walking down, the next thing to focus on is how to jump. So there's a couple options. You can start with the simplest jump, which is simply taking both your hands out flat like this, and then push them into the ground, and it'll launch you up in the air just like that. Ultimately, what you're going to want to do is get it to where you can do that with just one hand, like this, so that your other hand is free. So just keep practicing that, keep jumping up and down kind of in one spot, and when you're ready, you can do that next to an object that you want to climb on top of. So you walk up to it, and you're ready to get on top. You'll take your hand and put it out into the air like this, nice and flat, and then your other hand will be hitting into the ground to make you jump up, like this. And you see how my hand has now landed on the surface of these stairs here, and I'm hanging off the edge, and then all I have to do is just take my hand and pull myself up, and now I'm on top of it. And that is exactly how you climb on pretty much everything in this game. So if you're wanting to, instead of going all the way around there, you just want to jump straight up, just do the same thing. You take one hand, you push it directly into the ground, and you push and catch. One of the most important spots that you're going to be using jumping is this gap right here at the stump. In order to get back into the stump, you have to be able to make this jump right here. So you have to be able to push into the ground, like we were talking about, where you hit your hand flat on the ground, and you push yourself forward a bit, just like that, and you catch with your other hand. Now you can do it with your left hand, you catch with your right hand, doesn't really matter as long as you're comfortable. But you just want to be able to catch with your hand, and then all you have to do is just pull yourself up nice and gently. And there you go. Now you're in a stump. Now that you've mastered the basics of moving around and generally jumping on top of objects and being able to get up places, the next thing to focus on is climbing. Now there's a bunch of different ways that you can do this. You can pinch climb, you can elevator climb, you can branch, you can use ropes. There's so many different things that you can do. But we're going to go through each one, just kind of give you a little tutorial on it so that you understand how to do each one. But sometimes you don't need to use all of them. You can use certain ones in certain places. It just depends. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is pinch climbing. Now this is a fairly straightforward one. It can just take a little bit of practice to get used to. But really all it is you're going to take your hands and you're going to put them around whatever it is you're trying to pinch climb. and you're going to pull yourself up on the object. And just try to practice this particular movement at first, just going up and down, because then you add the second part in, which is to pull yourself up and then release in a big circle with your arms and catch yourself again further up. So let me move the camera back a little bit so it's easier to see that. You're going to grab on just like this so that you're able to move back and forth. Don't grab too wide, otherwise you'll just slip, and don't grab too far, otherwise you'll just like glitch through the wall, and that's not great. You just want to grab on the sides, and you'll pull yourself up and move your hands in this big circle. And that way you can just grab right back in. So you're going to move your hands in this very wide circle like this. And you can just imagine that there's this physical block right here that your hands are going to catch every time. You're just going to move right back to that same spot over and over. You pull yourself up and out like that. That's the movement that you want to do. And as you get better and better at it, you can do it faster and faster. And you can get to a point where you go like this. And it becomes a very efficient way to climb. Alright, next we're going to talk about wall jumping, which is also a fairly straightforward thing. It just takes practice. All of the stuff that we talk about is going to take practice, so just try not to get discouraged, because you'll just need to put in some time for it and you'll eventually get there. So in order to wall jump, you're going to push yourself off the ground into the wall, and you want the side of your hand to hit the wall. Like this side of your hand right here, or if you're using your left hand, this side of your hand right here. You want to be hit into the wall like this. And I will show first person. Just like this. So you'll move and you'll hit your hand, and you see how it's catching me on the wall like that? I have like a whole 2 seconds right there of just sitting on the wall despite not moving. That is the time that you're going to use to push yourself off to the next wall. And you see I'm still stuck there. I push myself to the next wall, and you just keep going back and forth, just like that. And this can be a little bit difficult, but just take your time. You do not have to rush your way up the wall. You see how I'm kind of like sitting here going back and forth? Alright, up next we're going to talk about elevator climbing, which actually, funnily enough, since it's the Halloween update right now, you can see that there's the skeleton here who is actually referencing elevator climbing because his hand is stuck on the side. And that is the way that elevator climbing works. So, a fun fact about the game is your arms don't have collision, so it just phases right through the wall. So you see how my hand is stuck on this side? That is the key to elevator climbing. You'll see that if I put my hand on this side of the wall, I can then move my hand in a circular motion, just like this, and I will climb up the wall. This is a skill that's not super useful in most cases, like you're not needing to elevator climb much. But if you're trying to run away from someone who's trying to tag you, it's pretty good. And let me move the camera over here so you can see a little bit better. So the motion that you're going to move your arm in is this big circular motion, kind of like a windmill motion. So you'll feel until you feel the wall on this side, you'll touch the wall. You'll pull yourself up. The same way that you pinch climb, you're going to kind of use your body to pinch against the wall. And then you're going to do the same like circular windmill motion to move yourself up the wall. Now this one is a little bit trickier to get down than pinch climbing because you can end up accidentally pulling yourself in different directions. But just try to sit down and take your time to test it out, and you'll get there eventually. Then we're going to briefly touch on branching, which I will go to first person for. In order to branch, you just have to kind of hone in exactly how to jump. This is where it's basically an extension of jumping, where you're just making sure that you're hitting into the ground at the right angle to land exactly where you want on a branch. And then you do the same thing on that branch, and you work your way over here. And you have to be very, very careful about not falling off the branches. It will take a good amount of time while you're learning this, and you're going to fall off the branches a bunch, and it's going to be really hard to stay on them. But as you play more and more, you will get better and better at balancing yourself on the branches and being able to judge how far you need to throw yourself to get onto branches. And eventually, you'll be able to climb up just like that, using branches. Alright, now we'll briefly touch on ropes and zip lines. The way that you interact with these is by holding down on your grip button, and when you make contact with the rope, you will grab it. And then from there, you'll swing between the ropes by basically throwing yourself back and forth between them. So the way that you do it is kind of like you hit into the ground, but just make that same motion to throw yourself and release your grip button at the time that you want to leave the rope. And eventually you can go back and forth between ropes a lot. Alternatively, you can use these zip lines with the same method, but instead of these zip lines allowing you to like climb up them like ropes do, where you can just stick on one spot and you can climb up them, zip lines instead are kind of like these slippery ropes, essentially. I like to think of them as slippery ropes, where when you grab them, you go sliding in the direction of gravity. Which means that if you grab them in the middle, without much momentum, oh my gosh, if you grab them in the middle without much momentum, you'll actually end up sitting at the bottom, because it's all about gravity. Now, the way that you can traverse these, instead of just simply going along with where the zipline wants you to go, you can actually throw yourself the same way that you do with these ropes and grab onto a zipline and slowly work your way up. This takes a lot of careful movements, so it might not be something you can do right away, but if you practice it, and especially on low hanging ziplines like this, you can just keep trying it over and over without having to waste a bunch of time. And you can slowly work your way up until you're at the top. This is especially good in beach map, or if you're trying to run away and not get tagged, you'll want to use these zip lines to your advantage. Because say that I was over here, and I climbed up this rope, and someone was right behind me wanting to tag me. I could get to this zip line, go on top of it, and then throw myself up to this zip line, and then use that to throw myself up here. And suddenly, I've made all that distance between me and the tagger. Especially with ropes too, they can give great distance between you and the tagger when you're being chased. Because if you can combo these together, look at how much distance I just traveled and how fast those ropes are moving. Alright, now we're going to get into the part where we're going to talk about how can you win while being in an infection lobby and trying to tag other people and not get tagged yourself. One of the absolute most important things that you need to do is watch where your opponent is going. Don't move to exactly where they're at, because you'll just be following them and chasing them the whole time, and you'll never actually catch up with them. Always watch where they're actually traveling to and try to cut them off. And especially watch for jukes. If you see someone doing this, where they're running up towards a wall, the likelihood is that they're going to jump up and hit off the wall and jump right over top of you. That's one of the most common jukes, where you're trying to run up to something and you get over top of them and you run the opposite direction, and they're just left still following you, not actually predicting where you are. If you see someone running up towards a wall, like this, try to stay back here and watch where they're going to hit off on the wall. Try to always predict where your opponent is going. And the same goes for when you're trying to avoid being tagged. Always think about where the tagger is moving and if they're trying to cut you off. If they're just trying to follow you, you can just keep running and running and run around in circles, and they'll never be able to get you. But if they start trying to cut you off, then you have to change up what you're doing and you have to use different jukes. Which we'll cover some of the absolute basic jukes here. There's a million different jukes that you can do, but we'll cover really, really basic ones, some of the most common ones. Which, of course, the one that I just showed you, where they run up to the wall and jump over you, is one of the most basic ones, right? All you're doing is you're running up to this wall, you're doing one single jump like we talked about, up into the wall and push yourself off. And then that launches you all the way over here. Again, in first person, you're running up to the wall, and you jump up, and then you push off. And you can even combo that into different wall pushes, like you can jump up here, push off this, go this way, push off here, go this way, push off this, and you can keep pushing off objects in order to juke out and move in sharp directions. You always want to be pushing off of obstacles and different walls and stuff in order to keep changing directions, because then you're way harder to track. So this one is called the slide juke, which is probably one of the most popular ones. So say that someone is chasing me here and I'm running this way, I can take advantage of the fact that my arm doesn't have collision the same way that elevator climbing does, and I can jump up and have my hand land on the opposite side of the slide from me, and then I can pull my hand around and fling myself back. Which means that if someone's following me, right, they're not trying to predict where I'm going, they're just going to run right through here, and they're going to see me go flying backwards, just within a split second. So the last juke that we'll talk about is this one where you utilize poles And the same thing we talked about with pinch climbing, where you grab onto the sides of it. So you're going to run up to this. Imagine someone's chasing me. You're going to run up to a pole, and you're going to grab it as if you're pinch climbing it, like this, right? And you want your hands on either side of it, and then you're going to pull yourself around and spin in real life so that you can fling yourself backwards, just like that. Now imagine that you're the chaser, right? And you're watching someone walk up to this pole, and you're about to tag them, and they grab the pole and fling themselves all the way back over there. That would be pretty disorienting. So always be watching for that too, right? If you know about that juke and you see someone beelining it for that pole, you can always wait back here a little bit, and they're going to go up to the pole, fling themselves around, and they're going to fall right on top of you because you knew how to predict where they're going instead of just following them blindly. And then when you feel confident enough, you can come to the parkour course here, which has the competitive queue unlock button up there. This is basically the ultimate test where you're going to be pinch climbing, you're going to be branching, you're going to be wall jumping, all of the stuff that we just covered. Also, hello Lucy, I see you. And when you can complete this course, you basically have the full understanding of how to do all of these simple skills. And you'll be well on your way to winning Gorilla Tag. Alright Lucy, end off our video. Alright, thank you guys for watching, and go ahead and check out the other videos on our channel. I think you'll really like them. And I will see you guys around in another video. See you! Goodbye!